to my party, we're just getting started. A life is a dream or a nightmare scarring. Hand me a drink cause I think I'm going all in. Get me a shrink who can catch me when I'm falling. Cover up my scars, flip the handlebars, crashing in my car, wake up in a bar. I'll be a superstar, just on my avatar. This world is so bizarre, empty out the reservoir. Yeah, I'm taking 6 shots, yeah, straight to the face. And I wanna get lost, I'm sick of this place. Don't know how to stop when I'm feeling this way. So I'm taking 6 shots till I'm feeling okay. Broccoli Studios.
On the mountain tonight, not a footprint to be seen. Kingdom of isolation, and it looks like I am the queen. The wind is howling like this swirling storm inside. Couldn't keep it in, heaven knows I was right. Don't let them in, don't let them see. Be the good girl you always have to be. Conceal, don't feel, don't let them know. Well, now they know. Let it go, let it go. Can't hold it back anymore. Let it go, let it go. Turn away and slam the door. I don't care what they're going to say. Let the storm rage on. Bother me anyway. It's funny how some distance makes everything seem small, and the fear someone's control me can't get to me at all. It's hard to see what I can do to test the limits and break through. No right, no wrong, no rules for me. I'm free. Let it go, let it go. Can't hold it back anymore. Let it go, let it go. Turn away and slam the door. I don't care what they're going to say. Let the storm rage on. The cold never bothered me anyway. Me anyway.
most of these new writers don't have the love of comics like these older writers had. And all they care about is, how can I put myself in the book? No, we don't care what you would do if you were Iron Man. We don't care who you are. You're writing Tony Stark. You're not writing yourself in a book. If that's the case, write your own comic with you in it. No one will read it because nobody cares. People grew up, are growing up loving Peter Parker, loving Miles Morales, loving all these Captain America. We don't need you to put your input in it. Just write Steve Rogers. Don't write Steve Rogers. What would Steve Rogers be if I was Steve Rogers? That's not how it works. But that's again how most of these new people write nowadays. That's why most of the stuff is shit. Because we don't care what you would do, because we don't care about your life whatsoever. Just write a book, get paid for what you do, get paid for what you're supposed to be doing, and make it a good story.
I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top. Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, bitch, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters and we ain't...
5 things everyone should know about the Great Cyclopean. Number 5. The Great Cyclopean was created almost 45 years ago, though he was originally portrayed as a villain. Number 4. The Great Cyclopean's known powers. He presses over 20 tons, runs 95 miles an hour. He has limited invulnerability, has demonstrated telepathic bond with animals based on skin contact. His doctors believe his powers may still be developing. Number 3. Though he lacks a nose, he does have a muted sense of smell through his skin pores. This helps to explain his unique but powerful personal odor, which you can smell for yourself with the limited edition scent infused variant of the Great Cyclopean 5. Number 2. Though many government officials have referred to the Great Cyclopean as an extraterrestrial, he is officially classified as an unknown species. Number 1. Though Cyclopean does ingest food and drink, most people, including the readers, have yet to actually witness him doing either. There is wide speculation about how a creature without a mouth can eat and drink. It may be revealed someday.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong with all the chemicals up in my brain. All of a sudden I don't look at anything the same way. Gotta build up of my thoughts sitting in an ashtray. I'm sorry that I'm so inconvenient.
From area to ride and pay, FMC will always make it rain. It's time for you to let us know which trailers gonna rule the show. It's the November unofficial FNC trailer countdown, November 2023. Come along and see FNC, FNC, FNC. It's the November unofficial FNC trailer countdown.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, maybe you'll get sick of being the monster out of my head, under my bed. Think you're something out of my nightmares, standing right there. But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, then will you get bored of killing me?
Silhouettes of you are like a taunt.
Never really know just what you want. With you I don't ever feel calm. I can feel the sweat inside my palms. Play with me like cats and a string. You don't understand the pain it brings. You don't ever wanna give me wings. You don't ever wanna set me free. You know I'm addicted to you, and it's twisted you've been gifted with the evil voodoo. Changing who I am, I'm making a new plan, rearranging my life and I won't look back ever again.
You ain't see me activated. You better hope that you never see me agitated. I think about my actions, plan them out, evaluated. That's how I end up on the top, man, I'm calculated. My mind's a weapon, my body is the engine. I'm never second guessing, I just do what I was destined. Cause I feel I got the blessing, persistence and obsession. That's how you keep progressing, I already learned that lesson, yeah.
Why do comic book stores go out of business? The same reason any store goes out of business. And the fact of the matter is, stores go out of business every day. They don't last 1 or 2 years. If they can't get through the first few years, they have trouble making it at all. The problem is that people who own comic book stores, generally, open a comic book store out of emotion. They go, I always wanted a comic book store. I always wanted to open a shop. And so I wanted to do it, and I have my collection. And I have 20,000 comics that I've collected over my life, and I'm going to open this comic book store. And it's going to be great. They've never taken a business class in their life. They've never even read a book on business. And they open their comic book store with their 20,000 books, and they start going, and they borrow money. They put things on their credit cards with no plan, no business plan, no business model. They don't know how they're going to pay it off. They just figure, I'll make plenty of money. Within 6 months to a year, their comic collection is sold. So now what? Do you have any plan how to get more inventory? Did you ever think about what you were going to do as far as the new comics were concerned? What about all the other product that people want? All of these things, now you're in it. Now you're just trying to stay afloat. The problem is that for the next 10 years, that's all you're doing. 10 years go by fast. Staying afloat. I want to pay off this credit card that I've had forever, but oh man, now I got to give this distributor money if I want to get this product. They're going to come in next week. All the other stores have it. You've spent 10 years running a business, and you've never taken a business class. And you never stopped to take a business class. And you never upgraded your register into a POS system. All of those things are, yes, they're learning curves, but why does any store fail? Because you didn't prepare. Why does anything fail? Because you weren't prepared.
Get a little bit of trouble, K-N-I-F-E
sort of pain. You caused a permanent stain, which has determined your fate. I've never seen so clear.
Smell your blunder. We are the sickness that corrupts your soul. FBI, open up!
Love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything.
Just because you want it doesn't mean you can make it happen. It's more than that. You can't just want something and get it. You have to do the work. So why is it the comic book stores close? It's not just that they don't do the work, they work hard. They don't know how. They just don't know how. And, you know, that's not a crime. It's just you're selling a product. You're providing an experience. And you're providing experience for what they think is my people, my comic book people. And I constantly say to new owners, you already have them. Why are you creating a store for them? They're going to come anyway. You need to create a store for the other people who come in and want to stay, who are drawn in by this new experience. You're creating a shop for them. You're creating a shop for women who are, right now, 51% of the growth market in comics. Like, I'm a minority now. 51% of the growth market are women. Okay, that means my store has to be geared towards the women's shopping experience. Do you know what the women's shopping experience is? No, you don't. You might think you do, but you don't. There's research that's developed over the last 80 years that you can read about that are all about the psychology of women shopping. And you can take that information and collate it and go, okay, it has to be clean, it has to be open, because women need space when they shop. It has to be bright, it has to have soft music, it has to have some kind of female employees so they're comfortable. It has to have the type of product that speaks to them in a certain way, that they want to come back and back and back. There are so many elements that go into it.
break. One break coming up. Change, nothing stays the same. Change, change, nothing stays the same. Change, change, nothing stays the same. Change, yeah, hit the ground running. Change, nothing stays the same. Change.
Hey, welcome everybody. I have been daydreaming and forgot to send Diana the invite. Hang on just a second. I don't have a camera tonight. I updated the software just before I came on and it lost the virtual camera. So I will have to work in audio. Right now, I'm pulling up Diana's messenger so I can send her the link. Boom. That's been done. Let's get rid of that screen. Happy birthday to my sister. She's 25 years old, I'm sure. So I'm waiting for Diana just a second. I got a cat purring in my face. I have no camera. Very frustrating. I wonder if I can get. Wow, that was weird. Try something real quick. Diana's coming. I can hear her. Hang on one second. Why didn't that work? Okay, let's get Diana in here. Hello, Diana.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, wait a
You're roboting. Hang on. So let me try something here. I'm trying to get it to switch over to my regular camera, but when I updated the software, everything went crazy. So why don't you say hi to everybody? I can't. You muted yourself. I can't hear you.
I know, well, okay. I forgot to turn off the sound on the YouTube video on YouTube. So when I came into the StreamYard, you were hearing me and me. Anyways, I should be all set now. Can you guys testing? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you.
All right, good job. So yeah, I don't know what happened to you.
I do. I updated OBS and it went nuts. So I just went into the regular camera. So now you see my green screen behind me.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. Something's better than nothing, though.
That is true. Something is better.
Hello, Rick. Hello, Tim. So I want to talk about local comic book shops tonight. Did you see the videos in the opening? Probably not, right?
I did.
Oh, yeah? So what'd you think?
I was thinking that there are videos about somebody's opinion on the comic book world as it is today.
Okay, hang on. That's good. Do you remember? All right, no, wait, it's not fair of me just to do that to you. So hang on. Let me pull up a couple of these. I'll pull up this one first and we'll let it play and then we'll talk about it in a second. Because this has been a hot topic with the comic world lately. Here we go.
Most of these new writers don't have the love of comics like these older writers had. And all they care about is how can I put myself in the book? No, we don't care what you would do if you were Iron Man. We don't care who you are. You're writing Tony Stark. You're not writing yourself in a book. If that's the case, write your own comic with you in it. No one will read it because nobody cares. People grew up, are growing up loving Peter Parker, loving Miles Morales, loving all these Captain America. We don't need you to put your input in it. Just write Steve Rogers. Don't write Steve Rogers. What would Steve Rogers be if I was Steve Rogers? That's not how it works. But that's again how most of these new people write nowadays. That's why most of the stuff is shit. Because we don't care what you would do, because we don't care about your life whatsoever. Just write a book, get paid for what you do, get paid for what you're supposed to be doing, and make it a good story.
There.
Thoughts?
First off, who is this person? I have no idea. He's just some
I
guy.
believe his name is Kyle. I'm not sure on the name.
And
he owns the Comic Book Palace in Haverhill, Mass. By the way,
Okay.
those of you who aren't from Massachusetts, it's not Haverhill. It's spelt Haverhill, but it's pronounced Haverhill. I know that because I lived there for 5 years. So, yeah.
okay. So he is a comic book owner, shop owner. And
Right.
he is expressing his opinion on some of the current comic books that we are now seeing.
Well,
Okay.
actually, he's expressing a popular opinion right now, and it gets very complicated. He's basically saying he's showing a dissatisfaction with the modern American comics, specifically Marvel and DC, and actually more specifically Marvel, because he mentioned Marvel consistently. But he's talking about how writers have been self-inserting, which is something that's been happening. I mean, there's no denial, in the interviews and the conversations that the creators have had, that they've tried to input their values into the characters, trying to,
Right.
trying
to
represent their worldview in these characters.
Exactly. Trying to appease their audience, that is definitely has different.
I wouldn't even say their audience. I'd say themselves. And perhaps there's an audience that agrees with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing this guy is hitting on is that they are trying to please their own ego. They're trying to write what they want to see written, as opposed to writing the character that they were hired to write.
Gotcha.
One of the major things with what he's saying that's kind of inaccurate, though, is that I think they are being hired to write exactly what they're writing.
Of course they are.
These are just people that are hired to, make comics. It all comes down to the editors and the publishers,
Right.
And it's amazing to me as a fan of, basically comics from 1980s and 90s,
Right.
that it's been allowed to get this crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Well, especially the characters that have been around for forever.
Well, and that's the thing. And I don't know anybody who hasn't said, I don't mind inclusion. I don't mind if you want to have a gay or a trans or, LGBTQ character.
Mm-hmm.
But why you got to take my, 50-year-old character that's been established all this time and twist him up or her up?
Right.
It's become almost a thing now. And I don't know if anybody professionally would admit it. But when a character is changed like that,
Right, I get infuriated.
Almost got a snide attitude behind it, or it feels that way to the fandom.
Mm-hmm.
It just, there are issues. But there was another guy I heard on Twitter that I want to share some stuff from, about failing and succeeding in the LCS. I don't know who he is. I believe he's a comic book shop owner, but I thought that what he had to say was interesting, and I thought it would be worth sharing. So let me see if I can pull up the right one first, because I definitely want to start off with one and not the other. Hang on.
Right.
You want it just because.
I don't see anything. I hear it.
Hang on.
Okay.
Comic book stores go out of business.
Okay, here we go.
Why do comic book stores go out of business? The same reason any store goes out of business. And the fact of the matter is, stores go out of business every day. They don't last 1 or 2 years. If they can't get through the first few years, they have trouble making it at all. The problem is that people who own comic book stores generally open a comic book store out of emotion. They go, I always wanted a comic book store. I always wanted to open a shop. And so I wanted to do it, and I have my collection. And I have 20,000 comics that I've collected over my life, and I'm going to open this comic book store. And it's going to be great. They've never taken a business class in their life. They've never even read a book on business. And they open their comic book store with their 20,000 books, and they start going, and they borrow money. They put things on their credit cards with no plan, no business plan, no business model. They don't know how they're going to pay it off. They just figure, I'll make plenty of money. Within 6 months to a year, their comic collection is sold. So now what? Do you have any plan how to get more inventory? Did you ever think about what you were going to do as far as the new comics were concerned? What about all the other product that people want? All of these things, now you're in it. Now you're just trying to stay afloat. The problem is that for the next 10 years, that's all you're doing. 10 years go by fast. Staying afloat. I want to pay off this credit card that I've had forever, but oh man, now I got to give this distributor money if I want to get this product. They're going to come in next week. All the other stores have it. You've spent 10 years running a business, and you've never taken a business class. And you never stopped to take a business class. And you never upgraded your register into a POS system. All of those things are, yes, they're learning curves, but why does any store fail? Because you didn't prepare. Why does anything fail? Because you weren't prepared.
So what do you think? Yeah.
I agree with him. I do.
There's a lot of wisdom there, and it's for
There
any
is.
business.
Yeah.
But in comic book businesses in particular,
Mhm.
Diana and I have been to several stores, and we've seen it from a wide spectrum. We've actually been in stores that are in the basements, and we've been in stores that are in, 16-foot wide corridors of storefronts, and
Right.
it can be very challenging to draw customers into places that
Mhm.
look like that.
Right.
In the case of the first video, the Comic Book Palace,
Right.
I could see how the layout of that store and the way it looks would be, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but it would almost turn away the modern average shopper.
Right.
In other words, they'd look in and go,
Mhm.
like there's nothing drawing them there. Whereas, and I mentioned this on Twitter, we have a chain here in New England called Newberry Comics,
Mhm.
and they're doing quite well. Now, they don't have a store that's just comics. They have
Right. It's
obviously
everything. Pop
gone
culture.
into pop culture, right? Yeah.
Right.
The comics section is ample and it's got plenty to choose from,
Mhm.
but they're such a large store that they have, Funko Pop and action figures and board games and videos, and I believe they even have some music in there, some physical media, and basically collectibles and stuff. And whether we want to acknowledge that or not, that may be the way that comic books survive through the 21st century as far as a local
Right.
comic book shop goes.
Right.
The owners we know, so the ones we know from the convention, there are a couple that appear to be doing very well.
Mhm.
Then there are always a bunch that are kind of in the position this guy was talking about. They had a huge collection, they're trying to sell out, and then they're not
Yeah.
thinking ahead, or the worst ones are the ones that don't have the point of sale stuff, the credit card ability, things
Mhm.
like that. And that's not an insult, but really it's
Well,
2023,
I
it's
was going to
time.
say, in today's world, very rarely do you see people pull out cash. I mean, yes, people still do use cash, obviously, but a lot of them use the card, whether it's a debit card or a credit card. But
Well, it's just something that people that's the way they want to pay for stuff. And we've
Mhm.
been in conventions, and like when the card machine isn't working right, people will
Right.
say they'll come back. But guess what,
And they
folks?
don't.
Half of those people can't come back. By the
Right.
time they've walked away, they've either spent the money somewhere else
Yep. They've
or they
lost
don't
their
actually have any money and they're like, I need an ATM. There's nothing here. I'm going to have to leave. And guess what?
Mhm.
It was hard enough getting them in the door.
Right.
You know, going through the line and getting through parking and coming back
Mhm.
in. Yeah, it's very difficult to maintain that sale. So, like we've always had a square on hand, and that is not because of me. Believe me, I would have made that rookie mistake. I would have gone out without a square, but Diana was heads up on that stuff. So we've always had that ability, but it's he mentions a lot of wise stuff there. Now I want to find the other one for sure.
You want it. Just because you want.
That was what we just listened to, right? Just because you want it.
Yeah.
This next one. So the first video there, I thought he showed a lot of wisdom. Now this next one, he shows a lot of wisdom, but I hear, I don't want to call it a fatal flaw, but there's a huge flaw, and I want to share it with everybody. So let's just watch the little clip real quick.
Okay.
Why do comic book stores go out of business?
No,
The same reason any store goes out of business. And the fact of the matter is, stores go out of business every day. They
That's
don't
the
last
wrong
more than
one.
2 years.
Yeah, I was
If
going
they
to say
can't
that.
Get through the
If that's
first
what you
few
meant.
years, they have trouble making it at all. Why do comic book stores go
I
out of
did it
business?
again. Hang
The
on, one more
same
time.
reason
Oh my
any
God.
store goes out of business. And the fact of the matter is, stores go out of business every day.
Here we go. Here we
You
go.
want it.
Nope.
Just because you want it.
No, I think this.
Just because you want it.
Wait, maybe it's not.
Fighting experience for what they think is my people.
No, this is it. This is it. This is the one I want.
Doesn't mean you can make
Okay.
it happen.
Here we go.
It's more than that. You can't just want something and get it. You have to do the work. So why is it the comic book stores close? It's not just that they don't do the work, they work hard. They don't know how. They just don't know how. And, you know, that's not a crime. It's just you're selling a product. You're providing an experience. And you're providing experience for what they think is my people, my comic book people. And I constantly say to new owners, you already have them. Why are you creating a store for them? They're going to come anyway. You need to create a store for the other people who come in and want to stay, who are drawn in by this new experience. You're creating a shop for them. You're creating a shop for women who are, right now, 51% of the growth market in comics.
Okay.
Oh,
there is-
right. Okay,
right
now
there
I
is
know what
the
you're
flaw.
talking about.
So there was this argument between EBS and basically the world about how women can't make comics. Now, I felt he was being awfully extreme, but I did understand in a sense what he was talking about, because he's talking about cape comics, so to speak, superhero comics, and he's talking about a very stylized, written for, you know, testosterone pumping boys. And I agree. Most women don't seem to do well writing an action adventure intended for a 13-year-old boy. However, that doesn't mean they can't create comics, you know, and they can't create them for guys. There are some women who write just as well as any man, if not better. But like, would we be so surprised if women were a little bit better at writing romance than men, or men were a little bit better at writing about barbaric macho-ness than women? I don't think those are big, bad statements. But now this guy says the growth market is 51% female. So now he's a minority. And my problem with that is if everything that's been released, say, over the last 5 to 10 years has had an extreme feminist tilt. Now, it's not about gender. It's not about the women working in comics. It's about the attitude, we've talked about this in the past about how the male characters have been neutered more or less and become, you know what I mean, weaker, or become jokes or become mockery. You know, it's all part of that. So if you're producing movies and comics about superheroes that aren't attracting boys because they're being written for women, the growth area is going to come from women. The problem is, even with them being 51% of the growth market, sales overall of American comics are down. Now, they may be buying manga, or it may be boys, or it may be a mixture. I tend to think that girl participation has grown. But I also think that in fairness, because of the way comics have gone, the attraction for boys has decreased. And maybe that has something to do with a natural thing that's occurred when video games came out and kind of drew them away. Because living action is in some ways more fun than reading about it. I think there's just a huge mistake there in his logic. Now, he says a lot of things that I agree with that I don't think is necessarily about gender. And let me see if I can find that right here.
I want to
I'm a
know where
minority
he
now.
gets.
Go ahead.
I want to know where he gets that statistic because it's a very specific statistic. 51%. Like, so
Yeah.
where-
I'm sure it came from a study, but I don't know which one, and we can look it up.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I don't know if he has that referenced or
But
whatever.
check out what he says here, because I think a lot of this is just good business, but where well, just check this out.
51% of the growth market are women. Okay, that means my store has to be geared towards the women's shopping experience. Do you know what the women's shopping experience is? No, you don't. You might think you do, but you don't. There's research that's developed over the last 80 years that you can read about that are all about the psychology of women shopping. And you can take that information and collate it and go, okay, it has to be clean. It has to be open because women need space when they shop. It has to be bright. It has to have soft music. It has to have some kind of female employees so they're comfortable. It has to have the type of product that speaks to them in a certain way.
Stop.
Okay.
If he had said, I am marketing towards men, everything he just said would have applied. Okay. Now, yes, we all us comic book collecting men will go into a closet in a hole in the wall to buy comics.
Right.
However, I think we all prefer going into a modernized place that has plenty of room, that is well laid out, that may even be playing something soft over the air to have an atmosphere. And guys want women employees too. The whole thing, he's like, you have to market towards the women. No, the women who are 51% of the market right now in growth are not sustaining the sales that we have seen in the past. So my only point is both sides have to coexist. And this is what drives me nuts with this whole argument, because I am all for feminism and LGBTQ having their shot and everybody having a place at the table. But when I say that, I mean all the macho-ness needs to be there, all the bravado of the superheroes, all the insanity needs to be there just as powerfully, and it needs to be weighted in a way that reflects reality. So to me, I think that, if you want to have a gay Superman, you can have that kind of character, but you also need to make sure that you have your masculine Superman still intact. Otherwise, you're going to lose your market.
Well, I just feel like characters that are already well established, like Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, and all of that, when you start to mess with the original character and change their gender, change their, their national, that to me, I just makes no sense whatsoever. But just to speak to what he was saying, and because he's looking at all these studies and these, what do women really like? I have a hard time going into a dark, smelly, unorganized comic book shop that actually makes me kind of crazy, because I like going into a newer, modern, organized, fragrant shop. So,
and I think the thing that bothers me about what he said is I think most people do. I don't
Well,
think
maybe,
most guys go, I prefer that dark, gritty.
Right.
We will, because we want our books, and there is a kind of coolness to it.
right.
But at the end of the day, when you're shopping, if you're looking for books, and I don't know, if you've never been in a clean, modern comic book shop, God bless you. I vastly prefer them.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I'm sorry, but it's weird when you look in and there's like torn cardboard boxes full of comics. It's weird when the shelving, even this guy's shelving in his picture, that looks dated to me. You know, like where's the glass shelving? Where's the, you know what I mean? Like there's a certain punch to the modern retail. And if you're going to play that up, now I don't know, maybe this was shot 10 years ago. I don't know when they took this interview.
Right.
But to me, I'm like, well, you've got wood grain on your shelving. That could be a little weird. It depends on the design of the shop. But then there are things he mentioned that, you know, like it's not so easy, but we're asking local retailers to try to keep up with what we would see from a chain.
Right.
You know, like you go to Walden Books or you go to, you know, Barnes and Nobles or whoever the local chain or the big chains are.
Right.
They have a style. They have a quality to their design. They've had the feng shui worked into the whatever their system is. So when you walk in, it's calming, it's comfortable. It's all the things he actually says a comic book shop should be. But then he says it's something that I don't like, and that's about the product. You
Right.
can have product that will specifically go to women. But the problem is if that's all that's being produced, or at least from a feminist point of view,
Yeah.
where you're so is the idea that you kill testosterone? Is the idea that you kill masculinity? Because if it is, then there really does need to be a comic rebellion from the independents, which we've already seen for the last decade.
Right. Right. That's a good point. You know? But I mean, overall, comic book shops are dying off, unfortunately, just like a lot of the big Barnes and Nobles and bookstores that we
Okay, but
used to go to.
One thing we need to be careful of, because this is where the whole Vicky crowd comes in, and they're kind of right. And that's kind of why I want to show the comic book palace.
Uh-huh.
If you're a retailer in the 21st century, the year 2023,
Yeah.
you know, it's your job to, you know, if you're independent, it's rough, but you're competing against, you know, people want to see what they see in big stores, which means it's got to be clean. It's got, you know, like I've gone into places and it surprises me, like so many won't have like just a t-shirt policy where the staff is all wearing the same t-shirt. You know, little things. And I think actually they do at Newberry, but in a lot of places there that doesn't exist. Now, mom and pops, it kind of shouldn't exist because they're more, you know, but it's always struck me as funny, the opportunities to market and display themselves that are not the same in a comic book shop as it would be, say, in the old record shops.
Right.
Where like you would go in there and you would never see boxes, you know, fresh off the truck sitting there for weeks, you know, or something like that. Whereas in some of these shops, you will, you know, it's just the way it is.
Right.
And so comparing like those shops closing to a Barnes and Noble closing is huge. You know, there's a big difference there.
Right. Right.
I personally think we should try to support all the local comic book shops, but I would also encourage them to do things like, we know a really cool shop that's in a basement, but they do the things that you really need to do. Like they had animation running, videos of trailers and comics and movie trailers, and the displays were everywhere, you know, and they had their toys, they had their comics, they had the old, they had the new. But it was a different experience going down there, wasn't it? I mean, talk about weird, because number one, I was thinking about this retail wise, doesn't everybody, shouldn't stores be on the ground floor? And I mean that in the sense that, like, so you're going down a ramp to get into a cellar, and it's an odd feeling. Likewise, if you're going upstairs, that can be weird too, especially if there's no elevator, because then they'll usually have a weird ramp, I guess. I don't know. So we just shared the link. Everybody's welcome to join in and debate and talk. I could play the rest of this, but this guy just kind of goes on about how, you know, they don't know their audience. Now, I suppose if you want to stick in the mainstream of what Marvel and DC are producing, you would have to market to the I don't want to call it the women crowd. I want to call it a feminine crowd. That's what I think it is.
Hello.
Hey, Echo.
Hey.
Hey, I'm not sure who you are, but you're welcome to join us as long as you're not like a perv and going to show your stuff. And yeah, I shouldn't say stuff
You
like that.
know
But you know
who
what I
this
mean.
is. You know who this is.
Who
Come on.
JK is?
Who's JK?
JK in the chat.
Oh. Okay.
Yes, we know
I
who
thought
you
were
are.
talking to me.
No,
You have amnesia?
Well,
JK.
Timothy Olsen, you're the guy who takes pictures with Superman. Timmy
No,
Olsen.
That's my brother.
How are you, brother? So what do you guys think? 'Cause I've been thinking about this all day. And yes, those did come from Vicky. So
Yeah.
I know a lot of people take it with a grain of salt, but I was listening to the guy and I'm like, well, I agree. I want a clean store. I agree. I like the bigger stores. I understand the constraints of some shops.
Yeah.
They're just getting out. They're getting into something that they can afford.
I'm under the impression that I don't care. I mean, even if she makes a point, it's like her motivation behind everything seems not sincere. Like it's just her flipping. It's her just flipping the bird to EVS. Really, like that's why I tend not to. Even if it's like the truth, I'm like I don't care.
Well, with them, it's kind of funny because at the weirdest times, they'll suddenly have like a buddy up moment, and they haven't had one for a while. But yeah, where Vicky's concerned, I don't know her motivations, but I always find it stimulating. Don't always agree with her, but I do find it stimulating. And like on this one, she's in that crowd that says no, it can't be feminism killing it. Actually, it's more about the women in comics argument. But I'm like, it's not just women in comics right now. There are men who are writing things that.
JK makes a good point. I'm sorry.
I wish JK was here. Let's see what he said. Is it a he or a she? Do we know?
I have no idea.
Yes, we do, brother or sister. However, what I'm talking about is I guess you would call them normies, even though I don't know if that applies today. But your yuppies of the modern era, whatever they call them.
Normies to me is just like when we used to call people posers back in the day.
Yeah,
like guy tries a little too hard to fit in, so he's like, "Oh, you're a poser."
But there's the thing: is normies. Yes, you have a lot of people that are into comics. So anybody that's not really into comics, we call them normies. But then again, you have your crowd that is really into antiques and stuff. So they'll go into the dingy places, as JR was saying about things for, antiques, looking for them.
Yeah,
where people like you and me might not go into those places because we're not into the antiques. So in that case, we're the normies.
Right. But with the comic books, I'll tell you, I'll go anywhere. If there's a sign saying comics for sale, I'm like, oh, I got to go look.
Yeah.
However, I know that,
sometimes
go ahead.
Sometimes the secondhand stores, though, you'll find a box of comics somewhere, and you'll find some like hidden gems.
Heck yeah, there's like a whole long box, 25 cents each, and you're looking at the whole like first 2 years of the Fantastic Four collection.
Something like that.
All of these. Yeah, I'll take these. You sure? That's a lot of money. That's $6. That's okay.
But I know somebody that's got a sort of a comic book shop. I know him through the net. He's got a channel here on YouTube called Misfit Corner. He has two: Misfit Corner Comics and Misfit Corner Scams. On his scam one, he exposes the scam or the scam people who call you and all that. He messes with them and all that. But he opened up in a flea market in Jacksonville a comic book shop. He just basically deals in older comics, and and he's got other product too that he sells. But comics is his main thing. But I agree with a lot of what that guy said, but I think I disagree with a lot of stuff that he said. Disagree with a lot of stuff he said. Like, how many guys just go into a comic book business, just trying to sell their own collection?
Yeah, I thought he was painting a very grim beginning. I'm like, maybe, but most guys that are trying to sell 20,000 books are looking at the comic book shops, going, "Hey, who wants to make a deal? 10 grand for all 20,000, maybe." You know what I mean? They're not thinking.
Yeah, they're not gonna spend 10 years trying to sell them one by one.
Or at least I hope that's not what they're doing. I mean, if they're doing that, Go ahead,
Most
Tim.
people like Rex. He just sells them on eBay.
Yeah. Well, it's become
Yeah.
that kind of thing now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I know, like, my favorite comic book shop is in a basement. It's the second location they've been in. This location's bigger than their first one. But I do understand, like, so we are talking about going into places that the weirdest places, right? But when I think about the mainstream, God forgive me, the MCU going mall inhabiting types, you still have that like layer of 21st century muck that you have to kind of put on an establishment to get them in. Like if I was in a strip mall built in the last 10 years, I would have to have a higher level of organization than if I was in one that was 50 years old.
Yeah. And like he's right. Business fail every day. The question is why. There's usually there's different reasons why.
Lack of innovation.
Well, that can be one. Obviously sometimes it's like they said, somebody they didn't plan. But
well, you know what? He Comic Book Palace is in Haverhill, and being quite familiar with Haverhill, it's a small city, but it can be a very tough place to have a small business, especially if you're like not right in the middle of it. So he may be having struggles because of location, and there could be other things impacting it. One thing the guy said in the video that I totally agree with, and I'm sure my wife can understand this: having a pretty girl behind any cash register helps your retail. And it's the same for a handsome guy too. But if you want the guys to come in, I'm sorry, slap me at forgive me, father, but you put a cute 20-year-old lady there, and you're going to get a lot of business no matter what you're selling. Guys are going to come in and find a reason to go buy napkins if you sell nothing but barbecue napkins. All of a sudden, I do.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
There's some guys that will do that. There's a mall here called Eastgate in Hamilton. They did actually have a comic shop in it for a while, and they had a good look girl as one of the cashiers. But I didn't go in it because she was there. I went in it because it was a comic book store.
But what they do is I believe there are companies that will hire a good-looking girl or a set of good-looking girls with the intention of keeping them around just for that purpose. And it does create an atmosphere that will draw your customers back if they're charming. Same thing for the guys, but the girls seem to have an easier time of drawing the guys versus guys drawing girls. A nice-looking guy who's polite is great, but
there is a thing too, and we got to remember. Well, not so much comic book stores, but I'd say probably 3/4 of your retail stores have women employees.
Yep.
Here's a question.
If it's in a mall, it has a female employee behind the cash register.
Yep.
I know we all have opinions, but what do any of us know about running a store? Because I've never run one.
Oh, I used to run a whole region of Sears stores in the Antarctica.
Oh my gosh! Stop.
Well,
I did work in retail, but I wasn't like I was a stock boy, man. I was.
Obviously, I don't think any of us have run a retail store business here, but there's some very common things in business. This guy says they get into it. Hopefully within a year or two, they've learned something about business just in general. Maybe not the comic book business. There's a lot of things that can be applied over all businesses. Yes, you've got to get into some niche things for each type. Running a restaurant business is different than running a hotel business, which is different than running a clothing store slightly, but they do have things in common. Like, you got to make sure you have more money coming in than you got going out,
Well, one of the things that we've all done is setting up a table at a convention. And that is not a perfect example, but you can kind of get the feel for it. If you If you throw your books down and you don't have a plan, and it's just like, I've seen guys, and I love them, that have come in with like the intent of just doing commissions, and they'll sit down and they'll actually have like a handwritten sign that says, bust $10, full chest 25, full body 50, and it's written like, and it's crooked on the sheet. They're writing it and like it's not even like on and they kind of prop that up on their table, or they tape it off the side, and they sit there and draw, and it's like, even if they can get commissions, that table would attract so many more people with just a little bit of money and
it's all about the presentation.
Right.
You're talking about the presentation of your table. If you go and you've got your table, and I've seen this with especially people that are very new and they don't have a lot of experience in sales or marketing or anything like that. They just throw a few books down on the table and they sit there and they hope people will stop. But if you do your table and you make it so that it draws a person's eye to your table, and you're standing and you're smiling and you're engaging, you will get a better turnout,
No,
but I wanted to say something when you were talking about, having a cute girl behind the counter.
Yes.
Which, yes, most people, like attractive people. But if that girl is not friendly, or if she's not engaging and can't sell,
it can be detrimental. Yeah,
it would be detrimental. So it's not just about having a cute girl behind the counter, which I think is a sexist remark to begin with. Because if you had a handsome young man behind the counter, I might decide to go to that counter.
Listen, I'm not going to deny that it's not totally sexist.
That's not sexist. That's just marketing.
Well, if you want to call it sexist, I won't argue with you. But what I will say is, it is a matter of selling. So let me tell you the truth.
All right,
if I put Rick out in a lemonade stand outside a football game, and his lemonade is $1, right? And then I take any hot Hollywood model by whatever standard you want to use, right? And I put her 10 feet from Rick, and I charge $5 a lemonade. And then the football game comes out, Rick will get a lot of sales. But the girl in the bikini that's like 24
that is my point. That's sexist. So if you had said, wait,
I'm not denying that.
No, but Tim was saying he doesn't think it's sexist. So if Chris said,
all right, yes, I see what
you put a very attractive young person, male or female, behind the counter, it would attract more male or females. Then that's
fact.
That's fact. But when Chris presented this cute little girl behind the counter, I felt that was a little sexist, because he could have said, if you go to like these stores and you have, a nice looking, a buff young man or a cute little girl, and they're great salespeople, that kind of covers both. And then you'll get the whole, gender thing
I'm totally not arguing
Yeah.
against that. I'm totally telling you, yes, I was being
That's
sexist.
all I was saying.
Well,
But
I don't know what. I can't say for sure whether girls do this, and Diana can answer this. But guys can be stupid, and they'll just go into the store and they'll buy something because it's a cute girl, and they want to get in her good graces, so maybe they can get her phone number or something like that.
So when I was about 16 years old, I would definitely go to the hunk of burning love behind the 7-Eleven, cash register. I'd make sure I knew when but as a mature married woman, that doesn't drive my decision to either go to that person or not. Sometimes I choose the grumpier person because I want to put a smile on their face or make them laugh. It's a challenge for me. If I can make a grumpy person laugh, I'd make them
grumpier people are usually faster. They're like, give me that. Get out of my line. Go.
Now, of course, unfortunately, well, as you said, mature married woman now would, like somebody about your age that's not married, go to the cute guy still?
Yes, I think they would. I would if I was not married, if I was divorced and I was not married, and I was, wanting to be flirtatious, and I still can be, I would probably go to a more charming looking person. So unfortunately, our physical appearance definitely impacts the world we live in.
Marketing sales.
Yep.
But the question is, would you go in and buy something just because
Right.
it's a cute guy?
Okay, well, let me make a interesting point.
Well,
Victoria's
I
Secret.
just want
right?
Diana to
Hold on,
answer.
hold on. They were making a lot of money, and then they changed from attractive women wearing wings to what they had with Rapinoe, and their sales
Yeah.
tanked.
Yeah,
Case in point.
they switched from like the typical what I call the Hollywood hotties, whatever that is, like the an anorexic fake boob beautiful lady,
Right.
to basically that. Yeah, they went to Rappaport or whatever her name is, and they had
Rapinoe, yeah.
that. I believe they actually they may have had a trans, they had a heavy set lady, they did all sorts of
One
things
was an
that were,
amputee.
yeah, it was everything that wasn't Hollywood hot.
Oh.
Now, in a sense, that was brave and awesome. I get that, but they ditched their. So this is where balance comes in again. So why would you ditch the quote unquote hot ladies that were making your sales, and just have your ensemble of unique ladies? Why wouldn't
And
you
keep
have
it-
them both?
yeah.
Like, why would
For
you?
Keep in mind-
inclusiveness.
Keep
But
in
you
That's
can
what's
have
mind.
them
all-
there too.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, it's not men that are buying that; it's women. So, my case in
Ah.
point.
But not necessarily true. There are a lot of men that buy Victoria's Secret for their women.
Well,
That's
there
a
used to be
big
until they
gift.
switched back. They stopped buying when it got weird.
Well,
That's why their sales went down.
right. But because I just think that this is a company that was trying to compete with all the other companies and trying to be inclusive. And hey, look at everybody is beautiful and blah 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 blah. And I
Well, what do you think about the? It's not even an idea or a theory. The things like the DEI stuff that is literally, it's about huge financial companies that make investments in smaller companies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And whether or not that company is meeting a checkbox list of inclusive social justice.
Yeah.
That's all about the
Yeah.
tax break.
Yeah, well, it's not just
What
a
that
tax
is.
break anymore. It's also about like whether or not BlackRock is going to invest, $20 million into your tapestry company where you want to make curtains for the world. Well, they can make your world and give you that $20 million investment, or they can go, you know what, you just didn't hire enough X, Y, or Z this month, so we're not gonna invest in you. There's another company 3 miles down the road that hired all those people you said no to. And it doesn't matter if you said no because they weren't qualified. It matters if you hired them because they were on a checklist. And I'm not saying it's race, gender, religion, or anything, but there is a checklist and it's all documented online.
I got another example for Diana. Bud Light.
What about it?
Their spokesperson and their sales tanked because their people, the people that buy that beer, were.
They were livid about the whole trans.
Yeah, but they're
person and
also
all that. Yeah.
they're also like blue collar.
Yeah.
Middle
Yeah.
normal people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason why Victoria's Secret had a problem with this, because they were
Oh, of course.
their
And it's
image was not to the
unfortunate.
people that are buying.
It's unfortunate because I can understand what they were trying to say. They were trying to say, you know what, our product is good for all types of people, not this, model that doesn't look like the normal woman that you're trying to buy for. So like, they have this beautiful, negligee or whatever. I want to get that because I think I'm going to look like that person. And that's not reality. And I feel like maybe the company was.
But I think that's why people buy stuff, is because they see a better version of themselves, and they say,
Yes, that's a really
if I
good
buy
point.
that,
Well,
I'll look
Yep.
like that.
Well, there's in sales, if you will, there's always been 3 or 4 things that are supposed to sell: power, sex, money,
Yep.
and I think there's one other. I forget what it is offhand.
The other one
like
is the Great Cyclopean, available at fundmycomic.com.
Oh, my cousin's saying health, which is possible too. Yeah.
I don't doubt
Like
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, if you get this product, you're going to be the healthiest person, or you're going to be the most powerful person,
healthier.
or you're going to be popular, or you're.
There's another one for you, Rick. It's different than health. It's weight loss.
Yeah, but they said they sell weight loss with those things.
No, they're different.
Well, as health too.
Weight loss and health are two different.
I say that. I know, Anita. They tried to sell weight loss with sex. They try and sell weight loss with money or power. If you are skinny, you may be fat now. If you're skinny, you'll have all the beautiful babes. If you're fat now and you get skinny, you'll have all this money or all this power.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, it is the
But
grand
there's a whole
illusion.
psychology to it.
That's something they sell with those things.
Right.
Even sort of
weight loss is also its own category too, though.
Yeah.
Here's the question: how did that guy make $1 million selling the pet rock of the pet rock? Is like none of those things.
Well, that shows the psychological idea. Like, and that's that idea that all you need is one idea that makes it, because he took a rock and sold it and made money.
Yeah.
Like,
so the question is how? He didn't use any of those psychology tricks.
Well, he probably did, but and sometimes it's not those ones. Sometimes it's the fact that, well, he probably did. He probably did in the pet rock in the thing. Oh, if you buy this pet rock, you'll be the popular person on the block.
Well,
if you buy this rock,
I don't know what the I don't.
But
like,
there is the unpredictable element
ads for it.
But there is an unpredictable element where
to take care of.
if the right person buys it, like, so for instance, let's say, I don't know if this has happened, but let's say this was the way it could have happened. He's at a yard sale, he's at a flea market, maybe a toy convention, I don't know. But the right person sees it and says, give me that. And that attracts more people, and more people, like word of mouth, people movements can sprout up and like change the trajectory of a product. Like, I watched a documentary about Kirkman, the guy who did Invincible and Walking Dead. And he struggled like before he made it. Like, so people can really go down like these paths of like no success, and then they get that one project that does the thing.
Yeah, well, you know what he did? He lied to Image Comics, and then they had a hit on their hands. So
yeah, he lied to his artists too.
Okay, so my cousin wanted, I think, say something about the pet rocks.
Yep. They were easy to take care of. You didn't have to feed them, change them, change the litter box, look after them. They didn't require affection. Everything that other pets have to have, a pet rock needed nothing.
So they sold them to lazy people.
Exactly.
Yeah, but think about it. Then once it became a craze, everybody wanted one. Yeah, that's my pet rock.
They sold them with googly eyes, and sometimes.
Yep. Yeah, I was a kid when those became a hit.
Yeah,
I don't remember. I was probably alive, but I wasn't old enough to know about them becoming a hit.
We didn't allow Canada to have them for years. We hoarded them for years.
Oh, let's talk about music since someone had to send a really dumb emoji at me.
My cousin's 6 years older. She remembers them, Chris.
Like, for instance,
those were smuggled.
The marketing behind alternative music, right? People were sick of glam metal, so they said, hey, this is an alternative to that, you should totally buy this. And then people are like, right, I am sick of glam metal. And people start, and that's when alternative music took off.
Hey, have you noticed I'm kind of flaming you on Twitter lately about it?
Yeah, I know, I saw that. Yeah, you think you're so cute about that.
I loved it, man. Come join the happy people. And I put up a GIF from Cherry Pie Warrant, which is like the worst. Well, no, it's not the absolute worst glam song, but it's in the top 10. Like, Poison owns like 8 of those.
I was going to also say something about no matter who you have behind the cash register, they need to know something about the product.
Yeah, there's almost nothing worse than someone who goes, comics, yeah, I love Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy. It's like,
You
yeah,
know-
you're not supposed to be in this shop. Get out. I have
That's
been
so
surprised
funny.
we haven't had to explain that to the children. I remember growing up, we used to always wonder why they were like, and we knew logically why, but it's like, it sucks that there wasn't a better name than comic books. Cause like it was a weird thing, you know, comics and comics. And, yeah.
Yeah,
And
well,
graphic novels, but it didn't have that same ring.
Well, that comics
comedians
because-
is what you would call them.
because they were both comical.
Yeah.
Well, I think at one time comic books were called, well, obviously, as we know from my comic magazines, but they're also called funny books.
Yeah, funnies. I was going to remind everybody of funnies. Sunday
Yep.
funnies. Actually, that was I've actually talked about this, but my first comic books were the Sunday funnies from Lawrence Eagle Tribune, which were all printed on newsprint, even the cover.
Mhm.
But it was folded up and stapled just like a comic book size. It wasn't a gloss cover; it was newsprint. But on Sundays, they would print all the strips in this comic book sized freaking thing, and I had, gosh, I must have had 200 if I had one,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
it was amazing.
But I would actually, we've covered a lot of what he said, or a little bit of what he said. I'd actually like to go back over maybe the first one and try and stop it throughout it and see whether we make points or whatever.
You mean
Well,
Comic
not-
Palace?
No, the other guy. The first one.
The first one where he's
The
like,
bigger guy, yeah.
some
Because I-
people don't prepare.
Where he
I
was
didn't know
talking
it was
about, no, he was talking about the first guy where, you know, leave the superheroes alone and make
No,
your
no,
own.
no, no, no.
That one?
No, I wasn't talking about that guy. I was talking by the first one. I meant the first one of the two that the guy was the same.
This guy.
Why do comic book
Yeah.
stores go out of business? The same reason any store goes out of business. And the fact of the matter is, stores go out of business every day. They don't last
Yeah.
1 or 2 years. If they can't get through the first few years, they have trouble making it at all.
But that's true for any business.
Yeah, that up to
the
there,
pro-
I agree 100 pretty much percent what
100 pretty much sense.
100% what he says so far.
The problem is that people who own comic book stores generally open a comic book store out of emotion. They go, I always wanted a comic book store. I always wanted to open a shop.
Let me ask you, do you think that that's him? Like, is that why he opened his store?
I don't know, but I can actually agree with that. You know, I've sort of thought of that before opening a comic book store, and you know, it's sort of out of emotion. You know, also I thought it would be probably a good business. You know,
Well, the
you
thing
know,
is, he's
for
like,
probably I think reasons that he gave in the other one that the other one we watched a little bit.
but I don't know. Maybe he knows many people like this, but I don't know anybody who started a business like that. Like, maybe there are, or maybe I'm just naive, but like,
Well,
watch what he says here, because he actually
Yeah,
kind of
well,
cut up the whole early.
My
owner
question
thing.
is the people that you know that have started comic book businesses. Have you asked them why?
Well, you don't have to. They'll usually tell you how much they love it. You know, like that's why they're
Yeah.
doing it. But
Yeah,
it's like
that's
he's like
so.
they go out with their 20,000 books and they don't think about how they're going to replace it or what they're going to do about it. No, they are thinking about that. They have to think about the new comics. They have to think about, do I buy
Yeah.
this collection? You know, and that's why they're in it, because they love comics.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know.
That's the next part that he talks about. But the fact that they opened it out of emotion, yeah, sure. I think that's why a lot of people open a lot of businesses, not just comic books.
Well, most
You know,
businesses that are small businesses aren't just about profit. It's because they love it and they go, I think I can make a profit doing what I love.
Yeah,
You know, like
people do that for you know clothing businesses. They do that about restaurants. You know, so that again, that's nothing new. Somebody opening a business off of emotion.
blacksmiths do it all the time.
Shop. And so I wanted to do it, and I have my collection. And I have 20,000 comics that I've collected over my life, and I'm going to open this comic book store. And it's going to be great.
Okay,
I
pause.
swear that's something he did. That's his story.
Yeah, I don't think many people are opening it because they got a comic book collection of 20,000. Most people aren't thinking to open a comic book with their own collection. They know they need to, get the DC and Marvel stuff, and they end up learning probably about a bunch of independent companies like Dark Horse and all that. Well, not so much independent nowadays, but you know what I mean. And they realize all these other comic book companies, or they knew about them, if they're comic book fan like we are. And they're like, okay, I love comic books. I want to open a shop selling comic books. They're not like, oh, I want to sell my collection at a comic book store. No, I want to get more. Most of them. Most of
Rick.
them aren't looking.
You put him to sleep. Look at him.
Anyway, at least
They've never taken
that'd be
a
in my
business class in their
opinion.
life. They've never even read a book on it.
He's
No,
waking up.
I hear what
And they
Rick
open
is saying. Like, it does seem like, so we're talking about these diehard comic book collectors that have like 20,000 books in their collection. I can't see somebody just all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to open up a comic book. What are you going to sell your collection? No, I don't think so. If you spent years collecting, you might sell a few, but to open up a store, it takes a lot of knowledge, regardless of what kind of a store. You know what I mean? So yeah.
And his point here, yeah, probably sure they haven't taken a lot of business, but guess what? That's in all different fields of business. People opening. Have we ever I'm not sure how many of those cooking shows you've watched where, they go in and up the restaurant and, half the time they don't know half the time they don't know what's going on in the business. It's like, so trying to make it seem like these comic people are idiots is stupid. Hey, Mike.
Hey guys, I just finished my show a few minutes ago, so I'm gonna come over and see what you guys are up to.
Well, good. Hang on, I'm gonna progress this just a little bit. Let's see.
Yeah, well, I'll
comic
just
book
tell
store with their 20,000 books, and they start going, and they borrow money, they put things on their credit cards, with no plan, no business plan.
See, I don't like him saying that because that's way too general, and I don't know anyone who has no plan except for landscaping businesses.
You know what? But I can believe that to a degree. But he thinks he's generalizing, but he thinks this is just only in this business. Well, no, it's not. Again, it's over all businesses that this happens. It's just
I don't know enough
Can you guys at least give me a little bit of a quick update on what you guys are talking about?
Well, we started off with a video by the video that we were sort of discussing, or the article we were reading on the weekend about the comic
book
shop
Palace
owner.
in Haverhill, the guy
okay,
that
you guys were talking about that. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
and
this,
then
this was actually thrown into a thread by Vicky that was about that. And I liked a lot of what the guy said, but I also found a lot of problems with what he said. So, like, we've been discussing what he said, and this one here is more about he's basically painting a picture that most comics in general, most comic book stores, and he's saying this is what most of them go through. And I'm like, I just don't believe it's so cut and dry. I'm sure there are some people who went at it and had no business plan. But Diana, we've met quite a few people now. I don't know that most of them have a business plan. I'm sorry. Like that's why they're in the conventions, because they're making some money. They have a plan.
Yeah. Well, the guy you guys are talking about here has a slightly different take on the guy from the Comic Book Palace in terms of what the current state of the comic book industry is right now. Is that basically where we're at here?
Well, I don't know.
A little bit, but I don't.
All right.
I don't know if he was speaking directly to the Comic Book Palace guy, but this was something that was proposed as like why comic book shops fail. Mm-hmm. And some of it I agree with. A lot of it I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't know where your logic is, because again, I we can sit here and say, okay, well, I can believe it could happen, but I honestly don't know anybody that put down money to get into a store. typically has a plan at least to get through the first few months.
Well,
They
yeah.
should have
Yeah.
their 2-year
Well-
plan, but there's a
Yeah.
plan in place. It's just not always executed well.
Yeah. Well, there's the other
So
two
based on,
thing.
just so I understand what's going on here, based on what I'm hearing here, you guys initially started talking about the comic book Glenn O'Leary, and then now you're talking about another comic book shop owner who maybe may have a slightly different take on what's going on than what O'Leary had. And based on what you just said, Chris, you agree with some of the stuff that this guy is saying, but most of it you're not agreeing with.
Well, here's a big thing that I agree with, and I think everybody can agree with it to an extent. In general, when you shop, you want to have a place with. Personally, the funniest thing is I had said something very similar just yesterday, but I like to go into a place with high ceilings and lots of space so I can move around, and there's no point where if I walk by, I've got to rub my ass against somebody else's ass to get to the, you know what I mean?
I share that aspect with you, Chris, especially considering some of my mobility issues, because I do have a mild form of cerebral palsy and I have an awkward gait. So I get that.
Like the basic retail structure is, wouldn't you prefer a ground floor than having to go up or down to get to a store? Especially if there's no accommodations. If it's ramps and stairs, that can be a pain in the butt. If there's no elevator or escalator, different floors can be a problem.
Well, I think it depends upon how good a shape you're in too, or if you like the idea of walking up and down stairs.
Yeah. Well,
for me, I don't mind because I'm active, so
Yeah. Well, I was
okay, say, Adonis, not everybody is.
Well, I was going to say two things. One, about the plan. If you're borrowing money, you have to have a plan to show the bank or whoever you're borrowing money off of, because most people aren't going to give you money without a plan.
Well, exactly. Louis will do it if you get the money by Friday, and you got to pay double. But if you miss the payment,
if you do it, off a credit card, like he says, but depending on what your credit card limit is, there's only so far you can go with that. And the other thing I was going to say, maybe although we're a few seconds into or a minute into this or so, maybe we can start this over from the beginning so Mike can hear this.
No way. I'm not starting this guy again. This is my third time tonight because he was actually in the pre-show. It doesn't really matter though, Mike. You're not missing anything. He's just basically painting a very negative picture of him. He says generally comic book shop owners. So he did put that caveat in, but if he's saying generally, I think that means he basically thinks this is the fundamental, this is the big problem.
Well, it's the basis of the way comic book.
So what is this? Okay, so just at least so I understand the main point here. What is this guy's specific take on the state of the comic book industry?
Well, here he's not really talking about the state of the comic book industry. He's saying why the comic books shops fail.
It's not necessarily a talk about the industry itself. He's talking specifically about comic book shops.
Okay.
And why they fail.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff he's saying is a lot why most businesses fail.
Right. It's not just specific to comic books. It's like they don't have a business.
He doesn't make that that distinction. So when you're listening to it, it's like, okay, so Joe, who opened up a comic book shop, probably was had a big collection and didn't realize he needed more comics, and he was probably stupid, and he borrowed all his money, and you know what I mean? It's like, okay, maybe, but I know guys that are in business that aren't stupid. So that's what kind of turned me off about what he's saying here. In the second clip, that was where I tied it back to Glenn, because he was actually saying, he said that 51% of the growth market in comics was female. And so he was later in the same interview, but a little later when we were looking at it, was saying that you should cater your store to females. Now, a lot of what he was saying generally applies to everybody's desire for good shopping, with the high ceilings, the clean establishment, the product that people want. The thing is, the whole 51% of females that are in the growth market, that's what you would have if all your comics are feminist. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and so the boy market's gone down, the overall profit's gone down, but he's looking at this small segment that is somewhat thriving in a very small way, in a very
Well, this is
small
the guy
market.
that ended up saying 51% of all comic book readers are women. Remember?
No.
he
He
said
said
the
the growth.
The growth, 51% growth. So that just doesn't really make sense. But
No, it does, because if you're feeding the masses mostly feminist comic books, and I'm
Mhm.
using that term because there's an argument that women can't do comics, et cetera, but I'm saying no, it's more of a ideology. So you have a very soft liberal feminist approach to most of the stories. You're going to lose the boys that want the testosterone
The
pumping,
superhero stuff,
adrenaline,
yeah.
right? The cape shit, as some people call it, or just the action adventure, science fiction. And the thing is, and I talked about this before, and nobody likes it, but we lost a lot when we lost the stupid comics code. It created attention. It gave writers, they had to work around these
They
censors
gave
to
them
tell a good
structure
story.
to work with them.
But it also kept everything at
I
like
still
the,
find that have nothing to do with this.
oh yeah, because comics are so fucking great right now.
Well,
No,
okay,
but that has nothing to do with.
Here's my take. on
Well,
what you
it might have had a little something to do with it. It might have been a contributor.
Here's kind of my take on what Chris just said. Okay, on the aspect of the comics code. I think what it more is that since comics code was more or less more restrictive in what, even though it did loosen over time, it was generally pretty restrictive in terms of what you could actually put into the comics. I think what's ended up happening now is now we've got kind of a backlash, almost like a reverse variation on where we're trying to keep a lot of the more mature aspects out of comics. Now it's like now that the wheels have been taken off the wagon, as it were, the strap's been taken off the table. Now they want to push all this other stuff in there that only a small amount of people really want in it. And as I've talked about, as I've been covering the O'Leary.
Well, how is that
story-
free speech to be told what you can put and what you can write?
Well, I think more what's happened is they've supercharged it and extremely supercharged. So now where you're on a highway that you're only supposed to be going 60 miles an hour. I think. What's your highway speeds there? 55 or 60. Now, somebody's trying to go, like 100 miles an hour. It doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Because
no.
you're gonna-
eventually
Wait, let me paint a
Eventually you're
picture
gonna
for you
crash.
real quick. Let me paint a picture for you just for a second. When I was growing up in the comics, the way I was, seeing things, the X-Men had this love affair between Cyclops and Jean Grey, Marvel Girl. But I was aware of the sexual tension between Wolverine and Jean Grey. And I knew that there was sex going on between Scott and Jean, but I never saw her boobs. I never heard the F-bomb. I never, but I knew all that stuff was happening because Chris Claremont and John Byrne had to craft the tale in such a way so that I understood what Wolverine wanted when he was thinking about Jean Grey. These days, not only do they just do it, but they also talk about it, and they talk about
Right. It's very
feelings,
explicit.
and they talk about preferences and things like that. In my day, it was more like a movie where you had to let your imagination go.
Right.
So a kid that was
It
9
was a
might
lot
be
more
looking at-
subtle. It was a lot more subtle when you were growing up.
right? But a good writer could make it subtle and yet detailed enough that an adult didn't go, "Oh, this is boring." No, the adult's going, "Ha ha ha! Wolverine's going to get some of Jean Grey behind Scott's back." Even though we never heard it, never saw it, that tension was there, and that's what I mean. The codes suck. Okay, it sucks to have anybody over you trying to tell you how to do things, but it created a tension where it made the Western comics have this thriving thing that I think attracted
Japanese
the young and
comics.
the old.
They show anything and everything, and they have no problems because they have a wide variety. It has nothing to do with the Comic Code Authority.
Yeah, but they also have a different culture, and they've had a
Exactly.
different culture for.
And the thing is, our culture is so freaking crazy now that it's succeeding here, whereas before we had more sanity, and part of that was the structures that were holding everything back.
Explain Image Comics, though. They were killing Marvel.
Image Comics is why everything fell apart.
Yeah. In many cases, manga right now are outselling Western comics right now. Manga
I
are
think they're still
outselling
almost
them.
in every case, aren't they? And as a whole, they're like Western comics are minuscule compared to manga.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say something about something. I forget what. Something about the comic. I forget.
Sorry, I have strong opinions about the Comic Code Authority and how it's.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with a bunch of weirdos that got hired and are interjecting their own politics into comics.
Yeah.
There's still the editor to say yes and no. It has nothing to do with the Comic Code Authority. It was outdated. It was old. It was unnecessary.
Well,
You're missing the point, though.
I'll outdate it for sure.
Yeah, but no matter what it was, it created a tension that created the Silver Age and actually brought us through. And the thing is, when Image did their thing, it actually destroyed all of it, even though the Comics Code was already going into irrelevancy.
Image was awesome.
Yeah, but the thing is,
it was gritty. It was awesome. They did things that Marvel and DC were afraid to do.
Well, yeah. Well, one of the first instances,
and sometimes
one of the first instances where you saw a crack in the Comics Code Authority, right? Was I think it was some kind of horror story. I don't remember what it was, but it involved Marv Wolfman. Because they mentioned in a story of a Wolfman, right? Who was acting somewhat as a narrator. And if you guys remember the early stages of the Comic Code Authority, you can mention like fictional monsters like Dracula or werewolves or anything like that, because those stories tended to be more gory. And it looks like we lost Diana.
Yeah, she's probably gonna go to bed.
But no, I was gonna say.
But let me finish the point, please, Rick. But in that story, some of the censors or some of the people who would like saying, "Well, no, you can't have a Wolfman in a story. They're too gritty." Until they mention, "Well, no, it's actually Marv Wolfman, and he's acting more as a narrator," and that's how they kind of danced around. That was one of the first cracks. I don't remember the exact story. It was a Marv Wolfman story, and it was one of the first cracks in the Comics Code Authority. It was one of the first ways they found to get around all that.
Spider-Man and Green Lantern and Green Arrow all did drug stories that broke the code. They published without the code.
Right.
And I understood that. That's where it really was bad. But my whole point is, it's not necessarily that we should go back to it, but it's to observe the fact that tension made writers go beyond like simply going, "Hey, okay, we're going to have Jean flirt with Wolverine and maybe she'll grab his penis and make it happen this way." No, we had conversations like, all right, how am I going to make the reader understand that Wolverine wants to make love to her, but we can't show anything and we can't come out and say it. So then they had to write that and draw that into it. And like, I don't think that exists by and large without the code these days, because everybody's just, there's no filter anymore.
Well,
Image lifted the bar so high that we don't have anywhere higher we can go.
I was just going to say,
I'll be right back, guys. I got to step away from the computer for a moment.
I don't think Image Comics ruined anything. Image Comics was what everybody wanted to read in a comic book, but Marvel and DC were too afraid to put.
Yeah. Well, I think he might be saying by it is because they broke the mold, as you might say. DC and Marvel
they broke the
figured
machine
that everybody started pushing the boundaries. but I was gonna say something else a while back, and I figured out what it was. It's about sort of what along the lines of what for it. It was sort of like like Disney, especially for the cartoons. Way back in the day, they'd have it so you couldn't say certain things, but the writers of these old Disney stuff still put in these sexual innuendos, that the parents would understand, but the kids would never get.
Well,
So
that art is virtually lost. I mean, you'll still see some of that out of well, actually probably out of Disney too, but you see that out of Universal stuff.
Yeah,
they'll have the innuendos and the kids don't get it.
Yeah, well,
I don't
guess
know,
it's for more than Disney. But my point is, with it, because you're writing this for a quote unquote kid, for it to be a kid's movie, for you to get stuff in there, you have to be sneaky, for lack of a better way, and it helps the writing, I think, because you're trying to be more creative.
When I started getting into comic books, it was like X-Force and Wolverine, and those were the grittiest things they had, and that's what I wanted to see.
Yeah,
That's why I'm not really down with the whole Comic Code Authority. I think it should be up to the creator, and I think what the problem is the lack of choices in comic books. You have either Marvel or DC, and maybe Image, but there's nothing else. Back in the 90s, there was like all kinds of comic book companies, and you had a choice of what kind of company you wanted.
Well, I think Rippaverse is kind of regular enough that you could do that.
Yeah,
well,
but I mean,
there's still quite a few around. There's more than what you think. There's over 70 companies around today.
yeah, but I mean, like the ones that get the most money are either Marvel or DC.
Yeah,
Nobody knows who we are.
Yeah, but see, I'm not talking about you and me when I say that 70. I'm talking there's a good 70 companies that comic book shops will sell.
Okay, name those 70.
I don't know them offhand, but
yeah.
In looking at just stuff for Mike, about today's stuff, I looked up and I saw 70 different companies. I think me and Mike did it either off stream or on stream or whatever.
Yeah, we did it off stream a couple weeks ago because you were asked, and I as I explained to you, my focus is going to be on that one site. That's where I'm using the
but we don't need to go into
my historical comic retrospective.
Yeah, don't need to go into that. I'm just using that as an example. There are like 70 companies, comic book minimum of 70 companies that they will sell, and that's not including us small name people like that are here. If you included us, there'd probably be over 200 or 300.
Well, if you could even count, because in the indies, I mean, what's it take to be a company? Like my company is me and Diana, and we're big. We're twice as big as a lot of them. Oh, that's funny. I can say that, can't I? Hey, guess what, Tim and Rick?
Your company's twice as big as. Actually, you can't say that. You can't say that.
Why?
Because at least, well, actually, I don't think you can say about mine or Tim's, because we may be the main employee, but we hire out for work, thus bringing in other employees for short-term work.
They're freelancers because you don't have to pay insurance.
We don't have to pay insurance for ourselves in that way.
Oh, I got.
Well, I think what Chris is more talking about, he's talking about in terms of permanent employees. He's not counting freelancers.
Yeah.
If you're talking permanent employees, in other words, people who are actually on staff with the company, then yes, Chris and Diana are double what you and Tim are. Okay.
Yeah, but if you count us hiring other employees to do stuff for us, we're probably double or triple them.
Well, if you're counting freelancing, then yes, you have a larger installed base. But my I'm trying to think of an argument here. I'm like, my Diana is on my business papers, but then she's a partner, but we're still twice as big. But it's like it's a stupid argument. I'm playing anyways. I don't want to fight over that.
Yeah, I know. We're just having
But
fun.
I am thinking, I'm like, well, I could hire Krista part time. Honey, you come over every Sunday for an hour. What's that?
Crystal, is that your daughter or something?
Krista is my daughter, and she's the lady that drew the troll story for Diana in Trolls Exposed.
Okay.
And actually, I really want to get her to do something that she's really vibing with. That was her first effort in comics.
Yeah.
And I really know I can whip her into doing something far more special.
You know, Chris, you and Diana should really join us on Sunday because we have some pretty good conversations, you know, and like the discussions you guys are having right now here. We have these kind of discussions on Sundays when we're going over stuff. You know,
Yeah, we should. It's weird.
Chris,
What's that? What?
Did you read the chat?
What about what?
Oh, your wife saying she's taking off. Good
Oh
night,
yeah, no,
guys.
I know. I can hear her moving around out there. She sent me a message about a half hour ago saying she was going to do that, and she finally did it. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Maybe she's a little mad at you. I don't know.
No, she's not mad at us. She's fine. I can't
Oh,
get
it's
no
like
word yet.
almost 10:30 there, Chris. Maybe she wants you to get to bed soon.
Oh, that's not without a doubt. I'm waiting. She's got to come up the stairs first. That's what I'm really waiting on.
Well,
Hey,
the other. Go ahead, Tim.
I said we cool, Chris. I have strong
Oh, yeah.
opinions about the Comic Code Authority. It's
No,
just-
I love the conversation because I want to be reminded that's not the way to go back, but we really can't. And it's funny because here's the problem with Western entertainment. We got fixated on everything had to up the last thing. So we got, for instance, we got First Blood, then we got Rambo, Second Blood or whatever, and Rambo 3 and 4. And as they progressed, well, except for Rambo 3, that really sucked. But as they progressed, they got bloodier and bloodier. And, Friday the 13th, we started off with the moms killing people in the name of Jason. And then Jason comes to life. And there are points in that series where he's fighting Freddy. He's out in space. He does all sorts of stuff. You always have to outdo the last thing. So while Image was like college guys, going crazy with ladies, just blowing their whole mind, if you know what I'm saying. Everything's just crazy.
Yeah.
The problem is
you gotta-
after Image, you're really in a place where the kids aren't getting fed anymore, and it's a dead end for the industry unless we find a way to get the kids back, or we accept manga and it's going to be what the Western publishers start to emulate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was a kid, it was like if you wanted something okay, Marvel and DC are nice, but if you wanted the real hardcore stuff, the really over the top violent stuff, you got an Image comic book.
Now, see, before Image, it was you went to the shop and you got an independent book. I remember when the Turtles came out, that was freaking great. It was black and white, but it was gory. It was the oh god, is it the hand or the foot? I always
The foot.
Yeah, because it was playing off of,
Marvel has the hand, the Turtles have the foot.
yeah, remember it was playing off of Frank Miller and the Daredevil run, and it was so perfect. It was and there was a lot of stuff like that. Look up Boris the Bear sometime. It was
but you're talking about I don't know what generation you consider yourself, but the whole Generation X go big or go home thing. We did things harder, faster. We didn't sit around when it came to music. We moshed. But comic books had to be more violent.
You're on the end stroke of X, where I'm on the middle of the beginning stroke. My prime years were really my 80s. So it wasn't Image in my time. My prime time, it was literally Marvel, John Byrne, Chris Claremont. Those were the king of all kings to me. Terry Austin was his anchor. I love that guy. And after that, it was all okay, where's John Buscema? I gotta get whatever he's doing. Sal Buscema. I'm probably saying the name wrong. But there
Yeah.
were certain people I would follow.
Yeah.
And it was just Marvel or nothing. I didn't do DC until
Yeah.
Batman
And-
movie came out.
And again, we're two different people. You're more like glam metal, and I'm more like hardcore punk metal. Grunge, alternative rock, mosh pit stuff.
Well, I was going to say, and then for me, I didn't follow any names. I just, read the books that I wanted, and I must say, I didn't get into actually read. Well, I got in before this reading Archie, but I never really got into reading the superhero ones till, Superman died, Batman got his back broken. That's when I started, going to the
But Rick,
comic book.
Rick, as you know, Archie Comics under as MLJ Enterprises, because you've already
they
read
had their.
one book, and we're going to be reading some more this Friday. They did have a superhero line earlier on, even before the debut of Archie.
Yes, I know that, but when I started reading them in the '80s, they were not focusing on them at all.
They'd been long gone by then. Yeah.
Hey, can I tell a dirty secret?
What?
No.
So I used to resent Archies. I used to see them in the market basket or the superstore supermarkets, and I would be like, those aren't real comics. Those are yucky. They're not even superhero. It was the house style Archie with like the hashtag on his hair, and and it wasn't anything against Archie. I'd never seen it or read it, but there were
I
the
just thought it
comics.
was lame.
There were the comics next to the cash register that were not Marvel, and I was like, Archie. They probably named it Archie just so it's A, so it's in front of Marvel. Oh, that's low. They should be called Narchie. Yeah.
Well, the fact is, it
Zarchi.
wasn't out of Archie, though.
Yeah.
It was
MLJ
Enterprises before that. And if you
And-
really want to, you should watch the show Friday when Rick and I are going over some of that to see just some of the stuff they had before Archie was introduced.
Yeah. I mean, like, what's the first comic book for me that actually made an impact? It was X-Force #1, and I mean, like the fight between Shatterstar and Reaper where he cuts his hand off. That was something that made an impact on me. Like, that is so cool.
Was that Rob Liefeld by
That was
then?
Rob Liefeld, yeah. Rob Liefeld.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my first comic book was a Christian Archie. So.
Oh,
That sounds like a weird drink. Hey, what'd you get at the bar? A Christian Archie.
Yeah, it totally got wasted on Christian Archie.
Tim,
I don't even want to know how they make
did
that.
Tim, did you have a chance to tell these guys about some of your experiences from what we read this past Friday? If you were with me.
I remind me because I mean so much happened.
Flexo, the Rubber Man, Blue Blade.
Oh yeah. Oh, I thought there was a lot of potential in Flexo because I mean, Marvel did Marvel Zombies 3, and they had Machine Man as the kind of like the main character, and he was kind of cool. So I was like, they could do the same with Flexo if they actually wrote him correctly, but they'd probably ruin it.
Well, it's kind of funny because one of the notes that I pointed out during the show too is that I think it happened this year, in fact. But they retconned Flexo, the Rubber Man, as the first symbiote.
Symbiote, yeah.
Yeah, they retconned him to that, even though he was basically a robot that was invented by two brothers who kind of controlled him with a remote control, and he had among his powers included, of course, the powers of rubber, the ability to stretch and all that, but also superhuman strength, all that jazz. So we read Flexo, the Rubber Man. We read Blue Blaze, of course the guy who died in 1852 and would come out of the grave. Dynamic Man.
There was a few good. There's a lot of good panels in those stories, but they're still pretty lame.
Yeah. Well, what do you expect? It's 1940.
Hey guys, I'm getting the wave.
Yeah, I was just going to say
what?
He's getting the wave.
Oh,
that means I gotta kill the show and go see my beloved bride. So thank you everybody. We'll see about Sunday. God, I'm so tired. Check out everything that everybody's selling.
Just one thing I want to share. I'm not sure whether. Well, I know Tim knows because I mentioned it a lot on my show last night. Dillard had a flood at his place. They're having no Christmas. So if you go to my video from last night, there's a link to his PayPal if you want to give him some money so he can get his kids some presents. I just sent off some stuff today for his kids for Christmas and toys and stuff and all that.
Very cool.
So if anybody wants to help them out,
I'm going to donate $25.
I can do that tomorrow or the next couple of days.
Oh, hey, did you get that job?
I don't know yet. I won't know till for
okay.
sure Friday, one way or the other. They're either going to call me before Friday, well, sometime like to the end of Friday business, or they're not going to call me by the end of business Friday.
No.
And if they don't call me by the end of business Friday, I can presume I didn't get the job.
All right. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah.
All right. Keep that in prayer. Check out Dillard's fundraiser.
Well, it's not a fundraiser. I'm just telling people go to his PayPal.
What is it, a PayPal? Yeah.
Yeah, just go to his PayPal and help him out if you can or want to. And if you can't, just let other people know.
Yep. Pass
And
it
God
on.
bless you if you do.
And God bless you. Yeah, period.
Exactly.
All right. Good night, guys.